for the first part of our live stream segment, I wanted to actually discuss an interview that Bernie Sanders did with Rachel Maddow. It's interesting because I actually haven't heard this interview talked about a lot. I haven't seen any videos on it, and it just randomly came up on my Facebook feed, even though I'm barely on Facebook. Just one of those things that happen to come up because basically when I get on Facebook, all I go look for is Tulsi and Bernie stuff. So, but I just wanted to play a short clip from that interview with Bernie because it's pretty damn good. It's a pretty damn good interview. And surprisingly enough, Rachel Maddow did a decent job with the interview process. So let's take a listen to that.
In terms of the character of the primary thus far, a lot of people have remarked on the fact that people are playing your song, that a lot of your progressive policy positions that you staked out not only over the course of your career, but in your 2016 campaign are now much more centrist positions among this field. Is that just a matter of satisfaction for you, or does that give you new work to do?
Well, both. It is a deep sense of satisfaction. I mean, you followed the last campaign. You were there in the debates. And many of the ideas that I brought forth, $15 an hour minimum wage. Hey, Bernie, you're crazy. That's too extreme. In a few days, the U.S. House of Representatives is going to pass a $15 an hour minimum wage. Bernie, public colleges and universities, tuition free. That can't be done. University of Texas today announced for families 60,000 or under free tuition. And all over the country, people are moving in that direction. Dealing with student debt. Oh, Bernie, that can't be done. Well, now you're hearing a whole lot of people understanding that it is an outrage. It really is criminal that you have young people out there who can't get married, can't have kids because they're dealing with incredible rates of student debt right now. Dealing with climate change as a national security issue. I was asked in one debate, I don't know if it was one that you were at, Bernie, what is the major national security crisis we face? ISIS, Al-Qaeda, what is? I said it is climate change. And people kind of laughed. Well, they're not laughing today. Healthcare as a human right. Oh, Bernie, that's un-American. Nobody in America believes that. Last poll that I saw, 60-70% of the American people believe in a Medicare for all single-payer program. So the good news is we have moved, not only have we moved the debate, we've moved legislation in states and in the federal government. But now what has to be done, Rachel, and I think I'm the only candidate who will tell you this, is that at the end of the day, it's not good enough to talk about Medicare for all, to talk about being aggressive on climate change. What we have got to do is understand there is a reason why in the last 30 years, the top 1% have seen an increase in their wealth of $21 trillion, while wealth has gone down for the bottom half. Why 500,000 people are sleeping out on the street. Why we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people, or parental leave, or sick and medical leave. There is a reason. And the reason is, and what this campaign is about, is finally saying that if you want real change, we need a political revolution. And what does that mean? It means we are going to have to take on Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex. In other words, we can talk about all the great things we want to do. But at the end of the day, to understand why we are where we are, where the middle class is shrinking, where 40 million people are living in poverty, we have to understand the political reality of America and the power structure of America. We are prepared to take those guys on, and that's why I say unapologetically, I am not afraid of those people. They want to condemn me. You know, the billionaires want to condemn me, that I'm an existential threat to the Democratic Party. So be it. We're going to take them on.
Ooh, Berman. Hey, let's be honest. Who here was looking for that speech during the Democratic primary debates? Who here was looking for Bernie to say basically, yeah, look at all this stuff. Bernie, he's crazy. Bernie's crazy. Nobody will ever want Medicare for all. Free college is a pipe dream, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Who here was waiting for Bernie to claim what is rightfully his during those Democratic primary debates? Because Maddow did bring up a good point. They are trying to pretend as if these are policies that are not only championed by the left, but also championed by centrists. And let's be very clear, they're not championed by centrists. They're talked about now by centrists. Why? Because Bernie has made those policies so incredibly popular. Medicare for all was at 37% in 2015 before Bernie started his campaign. And at this point, Medicare for all is almost at 70%. It's higher than that amongst Democrats. If you're weighing in Republicans and Democrats, it's hovering around 70%. That's insane. But it goes to show you, when someone believes a politician is genuine, when someone believes a politician is here to actually get the job done, when someone believes a politician is not going to be beholden to the big money interests, then maybe, just maybe, I mean, and also the numbers add up, right? But oftentimes people don't really vote based off of whether or not numbers add up, if I'm going to be completely honest, or else the military-industrial complex wouldn't have won every election for the last 100 years, right? And that's just a fact. But when it helps that people believe that Bernie is genuine, but it also helps when the numbers do add up. And the numbers for Bernie's policies, as I just covered in the recent video, I just posted that, basically the middle class, CNN Money even covered this. An analysis was done by an economics professor, and it showed that the median income would soar to roughly above 80,000. Like, that's insane. That is, and I know it seems like it's not probable, right? It seems like, no, that's crazy. That would never be a thing, except for we forget. This is how far gone our economy has become, because my generation sees that as an impossibility, because we've never seen anything like that. However, my grandmother, right? My mother, your grandparents, your parents probably remember that very well, because back then, in the 80s even, right? And mostly in the 70s, but also in the 80s, you could have barely gotten a high school diploma. You don't even have to have a high school diploma. If you understand a skill, if you understood a trade, your wages would be based, not because this is whenever FDR's labor laws were still being, considered, because now they don't even get implemented the way they're supposed to. You were at least going to have a specific minimum wage. And that minimum wage was absolutely going to be a living wage. At the bare minimum, if you had a specific skill, which you could easily learn via a trade school, you were going to be able to support your family from one income. Hell, we're not even asking for all that. Can we just have a basic living wage for one person, let alone a living wage for one person to support an entire family from? I remember at one point, my grandparents, my grandmother didn't work. It was like when I was really young. She worked off and on, but when I was really young, grandparents didn't work. My grandmother didn't work. My grandfather was the only one who worked. My grandfather was in construction, was able to support the entire family in California, no less. 2 cars, helped supported me and my brother, my grandmother, my cousins that were also living with them, off of my grandfather's one paycheck. And that was in the early 90s. But of course, that's dwindled. So by that time, if back in the day, maybe in the 70s or 80s, he would have probably made more. But he had been in the industry so long, of course, that he made a certain amount of money based on raises and things like that accumulated over time. But nonetheless, he was able to do that in the early 90s. So imagine what people were able to do in the 70s and 80s. Well, they were able to work a summer job and pay off their entire semester in college tuition. That's what they were able to do. It is not an impossibility. It is an absolute reality. And I'm glad that Bernie took the time during that interview to be like, no, all these people out here on this stage thought I was crazy. Hell, most of them, the way they introduce policies, still pretend as if Bernie's policies are an impossibility. Why? Because they're beholden to the donors that they've either courted now or they are going to court in the general election. Cough, cough, Elizabeth Warren. But I love what Bernie said towards the end of that little clip. I love what he said towards the end of it. He said, all these policies sound fantastic. They sound great, right? We can scream Medicare for all, free public college. We can talk about all the things that we want to get done, but it does not matter unless we understand the realities of the people governing this nation, how we've come into these problems to begin with, and who we need to take on to see these policies come into fruition and ensure we never have to fight to get them like we've had to fight recently ever again. He says we need to understand the implications of the military-industrial complex. We need to understand the implications of the prison-industrial complex. And it's funny enough that the conversation right now has been primarily surrounding what? Immigration. Specifically, immigration from Central and South America. What two policies or what two complexes perpetuate the issues we're seeing here with immigration? The lack of a desire to create comprehensive immigration reform, to create comprehensive criminal justice reform. The military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex has perpetuated the same problems that we've perpetuated all over the world. But hey, just like Europe has their quote-unquote refugee crisis because they border a lot of the countries that the West meddles in the Middle East, you're seeing that same problem happen here in the States. The countries that we've meddled in South America and Central America, there's only one place they can go, up north. There's only one place that's safe, and that's the U.S. and sometimes Canada. But nobody wants to be that cold. You can't ever be safe and be that cold, ever, okay? But and a lot of the time, they actually don't stop in the U.S. A lot of times, they do go to Canada. But do you see Bernie's point in that regard? Unless people understand how we've gotten to be where we're at, right? How are we going to move forward legitimately without calling out people? Because you can't just say Kamala doesn't really want Medicare for all. You have to understand why we know she doesn't want Medicare for all. Same thing with Elizabeth Warren. Why? They've taken big money their entire lives, their entire careers. Now, Kamala got caught. She's still taking big money. Warren admittedly said she was going to take big money in the general election if she won. But it gets even worse. When we're looking at the private prison industry, how much money has Kamala taken and her family has taken from the private prison industry? How much have they put into her former campaigns? Prison lobbies, or excuse me, police unions and police labor lobbyists. Like, who do you think is profiting off of the bodies of these children and these adult undocumented immigrants? Like I said, at the Immigration Detention Center in Homestead, Florida, in Miami, $750 to $775 per day per child, private detention center. That is no different than the prison industrial complex, and it is benefiting from the military industrial complex. So good on Bernie. Extremely happy that he said, look, let's not talk. These people want to talk and talk and talk. But like, if you understand why we are where we are as far as policies, money, people saying what we can and can't get done, why it hasn't been done, why these politicians keep selling us out. To understand that would help anybody be able to quickly piece together who we can and cannot trust. So I 100% agree with you, Bernie. Good job on that one. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Roku TV, and on JustNForm.com. Also, you can make sure that you're subscribed to the channel by going to the subscribe button, pressing it, and hitting that notification bell to get all of our notifications. And of course, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon by supporting the show by donating as little as $1. You can click on the link in the description below for that. And remember, more than anything else, find your balance.